Live. Welcome everyone to tonight's Moshiach Matters class. It is Monday night and it's Moshiach time. So a brief introduction. This is a extremely important sikha from the Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach, because this is the most recent words we have heard from a Rebbe's mouth. Of course, we'll have the full Hisgadlus and we will have countless, infinite years of teachings that are yet to come. But for the time being, this is the most recent battle plans and the most recent words that were spoken by the Rebbe. This was given on Chofei Adar, Tavshin Nun Beis. The Rebbe had a stroke 2 days later on Chof Zayin Adar, and he lost his ability to speak. And so this is the final words that the Rebbe actually has given out to the Hasidim in his teachings. So far, of course, and therefore it's very, very special, as you can imagine. It's a very short sikha. It's not like the regular sikhas that it was extended. It was just a very brief point. And let's get into it. Okay, so the sikha was actually, we're not in Pekude, but I was not here. I went to visit Melech HaMashiach on home base in 770 last week, and we are now, it's actually Pekude, but this sikha was actually given in Miyakel, and we're going to talk more about that in a second, but we're doing it tonight because we missed it last week. And starting next week, we're starting the book of Vayikra, the new book of the Torah, which is when the sikhas of Nun Aleph actually began. Okay, let's continue. Bekvios kama v'kama shanim parshios v'yakel bekudehem muchur v'ris. V'kavio shana he Parshios v'Yakel b'Kudehem Parshis Nifrad. The Rebbe said in many years Parshas v'Yakel and Pekude are combined. The Parshas are put together. But in this particular year that the Rebbe gave the Sikha, which was 32 years ago, and at the same time in our year, it's a similar cycle because it is a leap year, a pregnant year, as it's called in Hebrew, where we have two Adars. And when we have two Adars, all the Sikhas, all the parshas that are usually combined are separated because there's an additional month to learn. So in that particular year as well, it was separated, Vayakel and Pekude. And of course, there's a teaching connected to our own service with this matter. So the Rebbe starts off like this, and it's a very basic fundamental point. Very simple in comprehension, but very challenging in execution. And that is what the pasuk, that I was created only to serve my master. Just resonate for a second, because that is the source of every single problem, challenge, difficulty, and obstacle we have in our lives. If we could really penetrate in our being that we're not here for ourselves, that God didn't put us here to hang out at the beach and drink pina coladas and go on and go to the theme parks and have a jolly old time until we drop dead at 120. What's happening? That's not why we're here. It doesn't mean that we're not allowed to enjoy life. It doesn't mean that we should, of course, not. We should enjoy life. But the question always comes down to what is our purpose. And in halach, it's a basic concept called ikar and tafel, meaning what is the main thing and what is the secondary thing. You always want to say a bracha on the main thing. But the secondary thing is comes along, if you will. It's the same thing with our lives. When we make God the focal part of our lives, that's when we realize that this is the reason we got put into the world. And therefore, whatever challenges we have to go through, we shouldn't have to go through any. But when we do, with God's help, it should trigger this place inside of us that this is part of my mission. I may not understand it. I may not know why God gives me these types of challenges. I may wish I had different challenges. I may wish a lot of things. In fact, I may wish and hope and desire that I was born into different parents. Maybe I look different. Maybe I have more money in my bank account. My house is bigger. My wife is different. I don't like my kids. I don't like my neighbors. I don't like my job. Whatever it may be. The first part of everything is to surrender and say, I'm only here to serve my master. And when we have that mindset, when we realize from the moment we wake up in the morning that I'm here because I'm on a mission from God. I'm different from the others. I have a specific purpose as a Jew and as a specific individual within God's nation. And that is the fundament of all of Judaism, really, is that when we make God the main part of our lives, then God makes us the most important part in his life. Obviously, each one of us has that ability because God has the ability to make all of us the most important because he's God. But if God is like a secondary thing that maybe we throw a bone once in a while, or we think about from time to time, maybe when we're in times of need or trouble, well, guess what? That's the energy that returns back down to us. So first and foremost, I was created only to serve my master. The fall, and this applies to all matters in the world. The shemesh es kunam, that the entire world exists only for God. Right? We can't create lives. We didn't get to choose to be created. A lot of people, unfortunately, live in a state of perpetual victimhood, where all they do is look for problems and what's wrong with their wife, their home, their kids, their neighbor, their job, their height, their weight, their whatever it may be. It's called being a victim. When you're a victim, you just excuse yourself from having to work hard towards your goals because it's not my fault. It's his fault and her fault and their fault and their fault and his fault and his fault. And you just blame people. But the reality of the world is that when we first and foremost accept, and I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do. Don't get me wrong. When I'm giving over the Rebbe's teachings, I'm not trying to claim that I have mastered them. I do believe I figured a lot out. It doesn't mean that I'm there. I'm far from there. But at least I know where the goal is and where we need to be headed towards, right? So that's the basic idea, that God created this world for his own glory. And he blessed us with life, right? I mean, how often do you thank God that you're alive, that you have air to breathe, that your systems are working, that you're healthy, that, unfortunately, we take all the good for granted, and all the challenges, we walk around with a chip on our shoulder. But I was actually for bringing at Aliyah over Shabbos. We were, as I mentioned, Crown Heights, the Babish World Headquarters, 770. And we were talking about this point, that everything must start with a basic fundament of gratitude. This isn't just in Judaism. This is a basic, to be a mensch, to be a human being. Almost every self-help model and path of improving oneself starts with having gratitude. Everybody should have a gratitude notebook, right? Every day, spend 5 minutes just writing down all the things you're grateful for and all the things you're thankful for. You start changing your perspective on life really quickly. And that's the idea. God created the whole world for his glory. Obviously, he allows us to enjoy, and no one said we have to be in a state of misery. But remember, the world doesn't exist out there. It exists in here. We can't choose out there. All we can choose is in here. What am I going to do with what's been handed to me? That's all we can choose, right? It would be nice, right, if you could just like sit down and pick exactly you create yourself, right? And it doesn't work that way. So there's two general services, the Rebbe says, in serving Hashem, right? Basic foundation. We're here for God. We're here to serve our Creator. Now, how is that done? There's two general paths. Obviously, Chassidus has hundreds of explanations and different ways of dividing things up. But for the purposes of our Sikha, the Rebbe is pointing out two general paths. And these are hinted in the name of these 2 weeks' parshaps. V'yakem. Magala b'kol anini ha'oidam esa avodas v'klalis. So the magma pratim, the shemesh es kunam. V'idizeh po achdus b'kol anini ha'oidam. V'lachas kama v'kama b'nei Yisrael ha'inyan ha'avas ha'avdus Yisrael. So first is Vayakim. That's the first of these 2 parshas that we read last week. And this reveals the matter that our service in the world is in a general way, above the details. In other words, it's more of what we call a klalit, that it's not so much about my individual capacity, but it's more in how I fit into the general scheme of everything and how I work with others together as teams, as a nation, as a people, to serve Hashem. And this is what Vayakal means. Vayakal means to gather. And that's what it says. This especially applies not only to the whole world, but to the Yidden. Because one of the most basic fundaments of our belief system is we have to have love and unity with one another, right? It was just in last week's Tanya, Lamed Beis. The only reason we could have disagreements or anger or, God forbid, hatred which is what we see happening, unfortunately, in Israel right now. And there's been, this is intentional. The forces of klipa, of evil, if only our brothers and sisters who are stuck in this could open their eyes and see that they're being manipulated, that there's an evil force inside them that is trying to cause destruction. And how does it cause destruction? By get you to hate yourself and hate one another and hate God and just hate. And usually the funny thing is they do it in the name of love, right? It's so funny. These cuckoo people, right? You must respect everyone's opinions, but don't you dare say something against my opinion. They're so hypocrites, they don't even realize it's happening. But the point is, I don't want to dwell on negativity, but hatred, it comes from the fact that we see physical separations. So if you're not in touch with your deeper self, if you haven't gone inside and dug and unearthed your soul that's inside, then how could you see that level in your brother and sister? But when we realize that we're one, that our souls are all one, and the job therefore is to love and to accept and respect one another, you don't have to agree. There's nothing wrong with disagreement. There's nothing wrong with saying, I think this is wrong, and here's why. Now let's hear from you. That's how human beings act, right? Animals in the jungle, if they have a disagreement, they lock heads, right? Human beings are not supposed to do that. We're supposed to be able to converse and say, all right, explain to me how you think it, without screaming, yelling, God forbid, fighting. So first and foremost, we have to have oneness and unity with each other. And second, Pekude, which is the portion we're in this week, the is called Pratim. After we do the general work as a nation together, now we get into the minutia. Now we get into the details of, okay, what is individual in my ability that I'm doing my path. Of course, it's to serve Hashem, but it's my own path. It's what given the tools I've been given and given the surroundings I've been given, what I'm going to do with it. It's more of an individual service. And this is the unique thing in this year. Shukuri parshas V'Yaakov b'Shavua b'fnei atzmai, but parshas V'Yokude b'Shavua b'fnei atzmai. Though we read each one of these parshas in and of themselves, and they're not connected together. So b'zeh mudgash kishna shelemos havora V'Yaakov b'Kude b'fnei atzmai. And this emphasizes the completion of each one of the parshas in and of themselves, without them being united. And it reveals the unity and the generality of creation and the Jewish people. This is V'Yakel. So V'Yakel in and of itself is focused more on the general unity, on the achdus, on the oneness. And therefore, since they're separate, the Rebbe is saying, and interesting enough, in the year the Rebbe gave the Seichel, there was no Pekude. It was only V'Yakel, because he had the stroke. In fact, Pekude is the only parsha of the entire Torah that there isn't a specific teaching on, because the Rebbe had the stroke. So we're emphasizing even more the importance to the Rebbe, which means the importance to Hashem, which means importance to each one of us. The service of togetherness, of achdus, of oneness, of putting our opinions aside for the common good, for something more important. Why are we not focusing on the things that bring us together instead of focusing on the things that divide us? And it's real simple. If you see the narrative of the media, and they're all guilty of it. I don't care if it's mainstream. I don't care if it's right, left. It doesn't matter. You'd be shocked if you knew that the majority of all these media sources are owned by the same people, and they're controlling the right and the left. And their number one job is to cause you to be separated from one another, to hate one another, to find things that are different from you. You're right, you're left, you're Democrat, you're Republican, you're vax, you're anti-vax, you're this, you're that, you're a Trumper, you're a Bidener, you're on and on and on, black and white, man and woman, opposition. It's basic warfare. I don't know how people do not see that they're being manipulated. It's beyond my explanation that people are so blind and such sheep that they have no idea how badly they're being manipulated. Because those who are trying to help you are not causing you to hate and to fight. They're causing you to come together. To bring everyone together and say, you know what? We're human beings, right? That's a good start. How much more so we're Yidden, we're Jews. Wow. Like, isn't there a lot of things we can come together on instead of constantly having this battle? And job of Klippa, separation. Job of Kedusha, unification, right? We're approaching the holiday of Purim. And what did Haman say, Harasha? He was complaining to King Achashverosh, which from many Mefarshim explain is, this is Hashem. This nation is scattered. That's what they do. They scatter us. They cause us to God forbid, oppose each other or hate each other. And then when we're separated, they get to destroy us. And how do we get redeemed? When we reconnect to God and one another and we go back together. That is unity. Because there's an old saying, there's strength in numbers. And it's beyond just the Jewish people, by the way. The tiny minority of the elite, the 1/100% of the people who are really pulling the strings behind all the media, all the banking, all the corporations, everything behind the scenes, who you don't see who they really are, want to convince all the rest of us, the 99.9999% of the world, to hate each other. It's insane. It could go on, but let's continue. On top of this week's parsha, again, this was actually given on Shabbos, but on that Shabbat was, and just like this Shabbat, it was Parshas Shkalim. Shkalim is a unique haftorah that is read, one of the haftorahs, special haftorahs we read before Purim. There's a question that our rabbis propose, and it's like this. The commandment in Parshas Shkalim is that 20 gera, which equals to a shekel, is what every Yid must offer to Hashem in the Mishkan and as a truma offering. And it says, Esrim gera shekel, mechetzith shekel trumas laHashem. So a shekel is 20 gera, right? And the commandment, it says, a shekel is 20 gera, and you have to give half a shekel. So if a shekel is 20 gera, how much is half a shekel? 10. God doesn't waste words. Every dot in the Torah is exact. So why doesn't he just say, everyone give 10 gera? Why say 20 is a shekel, and each one of you gives half a shekel? It's a famous question on Parshas Shkalim. The Chora Halei Moshe Litein Gera. Seemingly, the proper language would have been each one give 10 gera. Medua Margish Akoisoi. Shetzrich Litein Davka Mechetzis Ma'eser Gera. And it's noted and emphasized, and it's written that it's necessary to give specifically half of Esrim, half of 20. Why? So an explanation is the fact that God is saying each one give half is showing the importance of how we all need to have achdus. We have to have oneness. We have to have brotherly love. Yehudi dimsa b'fnei atzmo. Harihu mechetzis. And therefore, it emphasizes that every single Jew, if we find ourselves amongst ourselves, we're only a half. In order to become a whole, we need another one of us. Our brother, our sister, this is the whole idea of getting married, that you're half of a soul. And to become a full soul, you need to find, not pick your wife, find the wife that God has selected for you. That is the other half of your soul that he brought you into the world for. Because we're incomplete without the another. And therefore, in order to unify each one of us and a general together, we have to have one another because we're only half. And how do we do this? We do it by fulfilling the mitzvah of to love your brother like yourself. Literally, your brother explains your brother. Who lo rak Yehudi shenimsa karoiv alav, ela afilu Yehudi shenimsa b'kavit shekel. So the Rebbe says this is not only applying to someone that's close to you, right? It's really easy to love your buddy, right? Your good friend. It's not hard to do, right? Sometimes you get in arguments, whatever, but you love each other. There's a love for one another, right? But someone who maybe you don't know, other side of the world, it could mean physically, it could mean spiritually, it could mean a lot of things. It could mean that there's someone you don't know at the other end of the world. It could mean that there's someone who maybe is in your community, but you don't know them because they look different than you. They dress different than you. They act different than you. The Rebbe is saying it doesn't matter, it's your brother. And therefore, the Siva, the Zahim, Komosh Kazuv, all the Rekaza Betanya, Shko Echad, and Yisrael Ben Yisrael, who, as it says in the Tanya, that every single Yid, every Jew is literally a portion of God. Mamish. Like literally a portion of God. And this is a common pasuk that is used to explain this. And if you're grabbing one piece of something, you're grabbing the whole thing, right? I have a pair of socks around here. If I'm holding this socks here by this little piece, I don't say I only have a few threads of the sock. I'm holding the whole thing, right? It's the same idea. Because there's a godly soul in every Jew, there's literally God in every Jew, in the simplest sense. And if so, all the Jewish people are literally one existence. We're one people. Am Yisrael, the Jewish nation. The fall zois. Now, if you can't clearly see the Rebbe's nevuah in this sikha, in this pasuk, then you're blind, because the Rebbe obviously knew Chav Zayin Adar was going to happen. He obviously knew that there was going to be a machloches, a division, not only in the world but amongst his own Chassidim. He obviously knew after Gimel Tammuz there was going to be a dividing in Lubavitch between Mishechistim and anti-Mishechistim, the ridiculous titles they came up with that caused separation amongst themselves. And he obviously knew there would be a difference of opinion. And that's why he's saying, and if your brother is doing something that you think is undesirable, doesn't mean it's undesirable, right? Because who are you? You're God. In your opinion, he's wrong. The Rebbe said, if you want to address him, if you want to influence him, if you want to have an effect on him, you do it in a peaceful way and a calm way. Noam is like nice. You don't screaming and yelling like freaking lunatics, because they're brothers. And the Rebbe knew what was going to happen. And he specifically said, don't do this. Yeah. והנה כשהקדמה לפועלס האחדוס בעולם ובין ישראל ויחל, יש להתחיל עם האחדוס יחל ביני ובין כנוי. Such an amazing sikha. Baruch Hashem, I learned it with Trey, with Shuli Dunan. We were Baruch Hashem, we got to spend some time together over Shabbos. So we davened Friday night at 7:70, and I learned with him and with a bunch of guys. There was a bunch of young guys there from out of town. And we sat and learned in the sikha, and we finished it. And everyone said, "Wow, short but powerful, right?" There's a lot of good, deep stuff in the sikha. And now the Rebbe says like this: in order to have unification amongst one another, which is vayakel, between you and your brother, first you have to have unification between you and God. Because if you're not in touch with the fact that there's a godly soul inside of you that unites you to God, how could you be in touch with that godly soul inside of your brother or sister that unites them with God? Which is why you see outside in the world that this is the big war right now. It's mamish power of Babel. The klippas, we're just waiting. I don't know what Hashem is taking so long for, to stand in and avenge our blood already and start kicking some serious ass, because enough is enough. But we know with 100% certainty, believe something, zero doubt, that is what is going to happen. That God is going to rid the spirit of impurity from the world. That every single person out there who is thinking about inciting and, God forbid, causing any harm to any Jew is going to have the worst possible judgment and the worst horrific things done to them and their families they can't even begin to fathom. If they understood what they were doing, how they're screwing with God, and they're taking the apple of God's eye, and they're doing the most horrific things, and that so many people in the world are supporting them, if they understood what is about to happen to them, they would bang on their hands and knees, begging God for forgiveness. Because God runs the world. And God runs the world, and he put part of him inside every Jew. And he said, yeah, you're my chosen people. That means you have a heightened responsibility, and you have a heightened blessing. But you're going to have to work hard. And that hard work starts first and foremost to realize that he's God. He creates us. The world is his. And he made an operating instruction book called the Torah and said, here you go. Follow this and we'll be good. You don't, and the opposite will happen. So first and foremost, we have to do tshuva. We have to return to the point in realization that there is a God. He created us out of love and mercy, and he wants to show us love and mercy, but first and foremost, we have to show it to him. We have to have what is called humility. You're not in charge. You're not the boss. You don't get to determine who is it. There was some dyke lesbian soccer player I saw a couple months ago on the news, and she lost or she didn't score a point, and she had the audacity to sit there and say, now I know God doesn't exist. Who are you? You make demands upon God that you should win the soccer game, and if he doesn't follow what you say he should, then he doesn't exist. The arrogance of people is beyond comprehension. Beyond comprehension. You have to start with humility. Humility is God's first. God creates me. Thank you. Oh, you put me here for a purpose? Sure. What do I do to help? And then you can have blessings beyond your wildest dreams. You can have everything you want. You could have the car and the house and the vacation and the clothes and whatever you want. But first, God comes first. And that's why we have to start. Before we could have unity. And this is the opening of the Rambam. The Rambam's magnum opus, the Mishnah Torah, where he said, the beginning and pillar and foundation of all wisdom is to know there is a creator. There's a God who creates everything from absolutely nothing and continuously brings creation into existence from absolutely nothing. If you don't start with that point, you're finished. You'll never have true love. You'll never have true happiness. You'll never have true peace. You'll never have true unity. Nothing. Because you're always going to feel separate, and that somehow you are the most important thing in the world, and things don't go the way you want them to be, and therefore you're going to cry like a little baby. I didn't get a goal. I didn't get a candy. I didn't get a toy. That's what spoiled brats do. Responsible adults have humbleness, humility. God, thank you for all the blessings you give me. I count them every day, and I praise you for them. I don't want you to give me challenges, God forbid. But if you do, I will do my best to overcome them. And if I can't, I'm going to ask you for help. God, number one. When we put God first, then we could have real unity. Then we could have real oneness. Excuse me. And therefore it says, 20 gerah is a shekel, and you should give half a shekel as an offering to God. Should call echad be'echad Yisrael b'nei Yisrael miuchad imakodesh baruch b'tachlis va'ad shem chad mamash, and that every single Jew is completely one with God in the most ultimate unification mamash. Think about that. Our souls before we came into this world were one with God. He took them out from God. He took them out and said, hey, I'm going to make you a special nation. You're going to go down that road. You're going to experience hate, disunity, all kinds of bad stuff. But I believe in you, and I love you, and I trust you, and I know you're going to do your best to make the world a good place. And know that I'm with you, and the day will come that I will redeem you. Just like I redeemed you from Egypt, and just like I redeemed you from every the other exile, and I will judge and destroy anyone who has tried to harm you. That is the beginning of everything. And then he sent us down here into physical bodies, and we feel separate, we feel distance. And every time we don't eat kosher, we don't keep Shabbat, we don't keep mitzvot, we just keep separating ourselves further from God, till we stop feeling the connection. And we think, you know what? It's all about me. Every Jew is literally one with God. And therefore, every single Jew is only a half. And God, so to speak, because God's really complete, is only a half. In other words, God held up his now he's going to explain right now. I don't want to go too Let's explain and we'll talk about it. And therefore Hashem enclothed himself in the 10 sefirot. Hu kamo eser gerah. And this is 10 gerah. V'chol echad ve'echad Yisrael, and every one of the Yidden, v'cholal me'eser koichos nefesh, also has 10 soul powers. Hu eser. That's 10. But dafka yideh ha'achus yechad na'asin kol esrim gerah shekel ha'kodesh. And when you put the 10 and 10 together, guess what you have? A holy shekel, a complete shekel. Because there's 10 sefirot, there's 10 divine attributes in our bodies, right? In the head, we have chokmah, bina, and das. That's intellect, that's chabad, that's the acronym for chabad. How to use your mind, intellectual mind, to control your emotional attributes. Chesed, gevurah, tiferes, netzach, hod, yisoid. And then your ability to behave, to speak, to act as malchus. Those 10, God enclosed himself in. He made an example of you above in the world of Atzilus. A perfect spiritual version of you exists above. And then he took a duplicate, a copy of that perfect spiritual you, and stuck it in a physical body, and stuck it through the filter of your mother and father, and all the good, and also all the dross, all the not so good things that filter down to you. And then he stuck you in a home and put you in a school with neighbors and surroundings and teachers, and next thing you know, you built up this thick, coarse shell, and you forgot who you were. And God's saying, reconnect to yourself. When you reconnect to those 10 emotional, the 10 sefirot divine attributes within you, you will realign with me. And then half and half equals a whole. And that's when you become whole again. And therefore, when we wake up in the morning as Jew, the first thing we do when we crack our eyes is we put our hands together and we say, Modeh ani lefenecha, melecha v'kayam, sh'kasarti bin, sh'sharti lechem, Rabba amon asacha. We don't copy that, but that we're basically saying, praise and thanks I'm giving to you, God, for restoring my soul in faithfulness, for believing in me another day. You're wonderful, you're great, you're amazing. That's how we start our day, because we're showing that we're one with Hashem, and it's emphasizing the fact of the second I crack my eye, I know I'm on a mission from Hashem. And God willing, that mission should go easily, and I should be successful in it. And if there's obstacles, I will do my best to rise to the occasion. But it's not about me. And this is the general service. The Maila Prati Avodas, the Meshech Hayom. And this is the general service. And then this precedes the individual service that we go about throughout the day. Because now we've got to go to shul and daven. We've got to then go to work. And then we come home from work and we work with our families. And then we have our own private time and our hobbies and all the other things we do in our lives. But that all start with the general comprehension that Hashem comes first. And this is why we see the precise language of the pasuk. Because modeh is a word of praise. The first words out of our mouth is modeh, is praise, is thanks, is blessings. And not I modeh lefenecha. I don't start off by saying I'm giving praise to you, God. I'm saying praise I give to you, God. Meaning the first thing, you see the power of the Hebrew language, how every word is precise. The first thing that we start our day with is the thanks, the praise, the acknowledgement, humility for God. Because what happens if we start with Ani? That I give thanks and praise to you. Guess what happens? That I becomes conditional. And that the thanks and praise I give to God is only based on what I'm getting out of the relationship, right? If you tell your spouse, your wife, you say, I love you. Do you say that when she does things you don't like? Do you say that when you don't get what you're wanting out of the relationship? No. What do you say? I love you. And she makes you feel good. She makes you some nice food. She makes you feel good in your body. She makes you feel good. Whatever she does that is satisfying your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual needs. Now you have love. That's why it's I love you. Because of the I I'm getting. Now try saying it when she's pissing you off. Different scenario, isn't it? Because any relationship that starts with an I is self-serving. And therefore we open the day with not I. We open the day with praise, acknowledgement, and humility. I'm giving you. Yep. And this is emphasizing the fact that every single yid is totally unified and one in the ultimate way with Hashem. And this is something that is in the most simple sense. It's more hadgish zois. And this is how we emphasize this, by starting with the praise. Yes, well, he said, in addition to this, this is a beautiful passage. The Rambam says that modeh ani lefanecha, this awakening is not just when we wake up in the morning after we get in our 6 to 8 hours of sleep. It's all day long. We have to all day long constantly remind ourselves that we're stuck in that hevel havali, in a void of emptiness. And we have to wake up and realize I'm here for a purpose, right? This is what happened in the times of Purim. The Jewish people woke up. We had an awakening. This is also even after wake, as we said. And the whole point of this awakening all the time is, oh my God, I'm a Jew. I'm part of God. There's part of God in me. What the hell am I doing? I need to wake up. I need to reconnect to my Creator. And this is because we literally have part of God inside of us. So it's not if, it's when. The Gemara says that in the beginning stages of Moshiach, one by one, God will redeem us. Okay, let me light up your soul. Bing, 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 bing. So it's happening in Israel right now, despite all the balagan. You know how many thousands of soldiers? You don't know the brainwashing that they put soldiers through, the indoctrination that they put them through to the whole Israeli culture, unfortunately, of no God, of creating we're strong, we don't need God. And now they're waking up. They're seeing miracles. They're seeing the hand of God. I have friends in Israel, shluchim, that are giving out hundreds, thousands of pairs of tzitzits, of tefillin to Jewish soldiers who are begging for them because they're doing tshuva, because they're waking up. And this is when we see kol hana hagasham yuchad kishorim mishnayim achroinos ech she'as reachal b'kshutos yikavetz galios v'nei samachal oidam. And the Rebbe said this is emphasized specifically when you see in these most recent years a gathering of Jewish people from all over the world. So Olim Eretz HaKodesh. There's a lot of Russian immigrants who were going to Israel at this point in time, and they were returning. This is the state of Yaakov, of returning to the state of oneness. And the Rebbe said we never saw such an exodus to the Holy Land in previous generations. Even the fact that our Rebbes didn't merit to go to the Holy Land, not even to visit, excuse me. The Rostov, the Lubavitch, and it's even we see that the previous Rebbe didn't have a chance to see the Frierdiker Rebbe in Rostov and the Lubavitch. They didn't have the opportunity to go to Israel. And the Rosh Tevis of that year, the acronym Tafshin and Base, is that I will show you wonders in everything. And the Rebbe said one of these wonders is the fact of all the Jewish people that were returning to the land of Israel. The Maaseh before the Parsha. And now what is the main thing is the action. First we have to add in giving tzedakah. And there's many ways to give tzedakah. Be'eser, you give 1/10 of your earnings. Be'choimish, you give 1/5 of your earnings. Kol asher leish yitain be'ad nafsho. Everyone according to what is needed for their soul. Lachit v'zeh oid b'Shabbat zu. And we should decide and make this resolution right now. וגם להתחיל בזה כגויים, and it's not only just giving money, but to make sure every yid has what they need. That they have clothing, they have food, they have things to drink, especially for Shabbos and Yom Tov. וגם באופן הניתנה ישנה הוראה בפרשת שקלים. And we see this as especially in this week's Parsha Shkali. Nitnas mechetzis hashekel hayisa b'shvil karbanos tzibor. And the commandment to give a half a shekel was given to all the Jewish people. Yedua shebiora v'admo al derech hazeh b'perish hapasuk. Adam ki yakri lechem karban lehavaya. Each one of us is bringing this offering to Hashem. B'chidei she'adam yitkarev leHashem hu lechem karban lehavaya. Shneitein kol mitziyos leHashem. And this is the idea that we are giving of our entire existence to God. And this must come to actuality. When we're giving charity and doing good deeds for one another, but do it with your whole being. Don't just like flex something to someone. Here, take some food. Here's $1. Do it with your being. And we have to add on to this these good deeds and tzedakah in action, in actuality. And this will hasten and bring forth the redemption. And this will bring together, Hashem will do the ultimate tzedakah and kindness and bring us all together in the true and complete Geula Shlema. Maybe it happen immediately. Hashem bless each one of us, all of Am Yisrael, that we should have achdus, we should have peace, menucha nefesh, menucha aguf, and we should have the return of our hostages and the return of all of our souls that have been taken hostage by the forces of evil, and the full and final redemption by the full Galus HaMelech HaMashiach right now. God bless you. I will see you in the base of Mikdash now. Now.